Imagine a place where the rhythm of life isn't set by the sun, but more by the relentless drumbeat of violence, where power isn't just sought, it's, well, brutally seized, and just surviving becomes this daily visceral battle. How do whole communities navigate that kind of escalating cycle? Desperation, brutality. What does it actually take to escape? Today, we're plunging headfirst into City of God. It's a Brazilian crime drama, but honestly, it feels like so much more than just filmmaking. It's raw, it's breathtaking, and utterly heartbreaking. An exploration of life in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro. It's not just a movie, it's this profound, unflinching journey, into the human spirit under extreme pressure. It's famous for its grip, its unflinching gaze, and this almost documentary like feel. So we're not just tracing a plot today. Our mission for this deep dive is really to explore the deeper layers, the resonant themes, and the human stories woven into every violent, beautiful frame. Our source material comes from excerpts of City of God, a cycle of violence documented, which really gets the essence of the film's narrative and its themes. Helps us unpack these cycles of power and survival. So, okay, let's really delve into this.
And it's absolutely crucial, like you said, to remember this isn't just fiction. The film is deeply meticulously rooted in reality. It's adapted from Paulo Linz's really powerful 1997 novel. And Linz himself, he drew from real events, things that unfolded over, what, two key decades, the 60s through the 80s, specifically within the actual Cidade Deus favela. The core narrative, yeah, it tracks the rise of organized crime there, but it's mostly through the eyes of this one character, an aspiring photographer. That perspective is so important. And a huge part of its authenticity, its groundbreaking feel, comes from that grounding in reality and the decision to cast non-professional actors. Many were actual residents of favelas, right? And that choice, it just infuses every scene with this incredible rawness, a believability that, well, maybe traditional casting couldn't quite capture. Gives it that gritty, lived-in feel. Definitely. So for our deep dive, the big question we're tackling is, how does a place and its people get so trapped in this escalating, self-perpetuating cycle of violence? And what does it really demand for someone, anyone, to find a way out, to break free?
Yeah, and the film wastes absolutely no time throwing you right into that reality. It's like you're tossed into the chaos from minute one. It starts with this incredibly tense, almost dizzying prologue scene. You're just plunged into the dusty, sun-baked streets watching this heart-pounding chase, a chicken scrambling desperately, being chased by armed gang members. The energy is just frantic, almost hysterical, really disorienting. Then, just when the tension is almost unbearable, the scene pauses, literally freezes. It's striking, almost dreamlike. And in that moment, our narrator, Rocket, steps forward. Seems like he's talking right to us. And what's really amazing, what sets the stage, is his very first line. He says quite defiantly, this isn't his story about crime, but rather how we escaped it. That's not just plot, it's a thematic beacon. A subtle promise. It tells you straight away, okay, we're going to see horror, brutality, despair, but there's also this slim glimmer of hope, a potential path out right from the start. It feels almost like a challenge from the filmmakers.
Exactly. And what's so compelling about that opening isn't just the intensity, it's how the narrative choice itself tells you this isn't going to be simple or linear. It's clearly a deep dive into cause and effect over decades. That opening moment, the chicken chase, it's actually a flash forward, a glimpse of the climax. Then the narrative rewinds masterfully. Takes us back to the beginnings of the favela, the start of the crime element. And the film unfolds in these distinct chapters, right? Anchored in specific periods, 60s, 70s, 80s. It's not just chronological. It's a masterclass in cinematic storytelling. The directors, Fernando Morales and Katia Lund, and the editor, Daniel Resende, they use this kinetic, almost breathless editing style. People called it fast cut or bullet time sometimes, even before those terms were common. And that frantic pace, combined with the chapter structure, it really conveys that sense of buildup, like a snowball effect of brutality gaining momentum. It feels like the world's collapsing around them. Every small decision, every escalation leads straight to that chaotic scene we saw first. This non-linear approach, it forces you to grasp the long-term generational nature of the violence. It's not just isolated incidents. It's a slow, horrifying descent. Shows how an environment can trap people in a cycle that just gets harder and harder to escape.
Right. And to really get a handle on how that cycle even started, we have to go back to the 1960s, when Cidade de Deus was still new, still sort of finding its identity. And that's where we first meet Rocket. Not as the young man from the opening, but as this innocent kid, just navigating the streets, the growing community. Back then, the favela, well, it wasn't rich, obviously, but had a different vibe, maybe even a surprising innocence in its early crime. The source material paints this picture of Rocket growing up then. And in this era, we meet the first real criminals, this group known, ironically, as the Tender Trio: Shaggy, Clipper, and Rocket's own older brother, Goose. They were basically small time, robbing delivery trucks mostly. But here's the key thing where that tender name comes in. They actually shared their loot with the community. There's this subtle, almost weird tension there. They're criminals, yes, but they have this kind of community connection, this sort of Robin Hood thing hints at a different time for crime before it got completely ruthless, like a fleeting moment where crime and maybe some weird form of social responsibility coexisted.
That's a really crucial point about their tenderness. It shows a specific, almost outdated phase of crime. Maybe the lines weren't so sharp yet. And it's into this delicate, almost fragile criminal world that the truly pivotal character arrives. The one who just shatters that balance. A young kid named Lil Dice. From the start, he's just desperate to be part of the Tender Trio's action. He wants their toughness, their recognition, but his ambition takes this incredibly sinister, terrifying turn very quickly. The film shows this critical, horrifying event, the motel massacre. Lil Dice, with this chilling mix of nerve and manipulation, convinces the trio to rob a motel. It seems straightforward, but then secretly, brutally, and with absolutely zero remorse, he kills everyone inside. This single act of extreme, unprovoked violence. It's not just plot. It's like the film's cold thesis statement. It shows how one act like that can totally change a community's moral compass. Sets a brutal precedent. Accelerates the whole cycle of bloodshed. Makes it almost impossible for the next generation to escape. The aftermath is devastating. Swift. The Tender Trio, completely shaken, disgusted by that cold-bloodedness, they just disband. And then tragically, the cycle grips even tighter when Rocket's own brother, Goose, is later killed directly by Lil Dice. This moment isn't just a crime, it's a toxic seed being planted, the total loss of innocence. It signals this new, way more ruthless, nihilistic kind of crime that's going to define the favela for years.
And as we jump forward into the 1970s, that question, does one act of violence start a whole consuming cycle? The answer becomes terrifyingly clear. The crime landscape in Ciudad de Davis is totally different now, fundamentally changed. That unsettling kid, Little Dice, he's back. But he's not just a kid anymore. He's fully morphed into the ruthless, ambitious, dominant drug dealer known as Lil Dice. His transformation is complete. From the boy who did that horrific act in secret to this openly brutal figure who controls huge parts of the favela's drug trade. He hasn't just built an empire, he forged it. Through fear, intimidation, this almost pathological need for control. And what's really interesting, almost paradoxical, is his partner in all this, Benny. Benny's introduced as Lil Zai's calmer, more charismatic friend, a total foil to Z's raw aggression. He tries to bring some kind of order, some peace to the chaos that it constantly creates. Their dynamic is one of the most fascinating and tragically balanced parts of this era, this partnership between pure savagery and a desire for some kind of normalcy, even within the underworld.
Yeah, that dynamic between Zay and Benny is absolutely a cornerstone. It shows the complex, often contradictory bonds formed in these desperate situations. But what's even more critical to unpack is how Lil Zay consolidates his power. He's not inheriting anything. He's violently carving out his own turf, piece by agonizing piece. The source material and the film, they vividly show him systematically wiping out rivals, with extreme prejudice, almost ritualistically. His rule isn't based on negotiation or loyalty or even respect. It's enforced through torture, public humiliation, quick executions. He's shown as this force of nature, almost primal, unchecked power personified. And even with his growing empire, he stays totally unpredictable, erratic, universally feared, which, ironically, is part of his terrifying control. This isn't traditional leadership. It's raw dominance through brutality. And when you connect that to the bigger picture, the film makes this powerful statement about poverty and inequality, doesn't it? It shows how the vacuum created by desperation, by the lack of real opportunities, lets figures like Zayat rise and thrive. Crime, especially the drug trade, becomes the main economy. It offers the only perceived path, dark and dangerous as it is to power, wealth, status, where normal routes just don't exist. It's not just about individual choices. It shows how power, once grabbed in that kind of environment, almost always spirals into more brutality. It's a stark look at how dire circumstances can twist ambition into violent domination.
And while Zay is building this terrifying empire, the story keeps circling back to Rocket. His path is such a stark contrast to all the violence. From the start, Rocket has this incredibly clear goal. Become a photographer. He wants to use a camera to capture the world, frame its truths, not wield a gun to control it. And this desire for a different life keeps him sort of tethered to a parallel reality. Separate from the crime that traps so many others, we see him working little jobs, legitimate ones, just trying to get by, always navigating the dangers of the favela. But crucially, he stays the observer. He's always there, almost invisible, witnessing the brutality, the despair, the brief moments of joy. But he stays outside the actual criminal stuff. It's such a stark difference. His shyness, his almost childlike innocence against Zay's brutal world. It really makes you wonder, how does he keep that separation, that focus? So what does this all mean for someone like Rocket, literally in the eye of the storm, knowing its every tremor, but trying so desperately to choose a different way?
Well, that brings us right to this core idea of fate versus choice, seen through Rocket. This may be one of the film's deepest questions. In a world where so many paths seem tragically set by your environment, where circumstance feels like inescapable gravity, Rocket is this incredibly rare exception. Why is his escape so rare, so exceptional? The film shows us, almost painfully again and again, how most characters are trapped by circumstance. Destiny seems stacked against them, even if they want something else, like Benny trying so hard to leave. Rocket's survival, his eventual escape, it's a powerful testament to his single focus, his artistic dream, and maybe, like you said, a quietness or introversion that keeps him out of direct conflict. His role as observer, not participant, is absolutely key. It gives him this unique, somewhat detached view of the violence, lets him document it without getting fully sucked in, without having to make the terrible choices others face. And this is where the theme of media and truth really starts to emerge strongly, not just as an idea, but as a real force. His camera, his lens, becomes a tool for understanding, for telling the truth, and ultimately his most unexpected way out. He's seeing the story, capturing its raw truth, not living it as a victim or perpetrator. And that gives him a rare kind of agency where others have none. It forces us to ask, how much real control do we have over our destiny when we're born into, shaped by certain overwhelming places? Rocket is a powerful, if rare, exception, a testament to a singular vision, and maybe a bit of luck too.
That difference between observer and participant becomes just incredibly, almost agonizingly crucial as things unfold. And what's amazing about this huge story with so many characters is how it turns on these single events that cause massive, irreversible shifts. One of those, the real tragic catalyst for the favela tipping into full-blown war, is Benny's death. By the height of the 70s, Benny, Zay's calmer partner, he's just grown totally weary of the criminal life. He wants something else, a normal, peaceful life, a dream that feels almost impossible in the city of God. So, to mark this hopeful new start, this desperate leap towards normalcy, he throws a farewell party, trying to bridge that gap between his past and his future. But then, in this cruel, almost Shakespearean twist, during the party, a petty gangster named Blackie tries to kill Lil Zay. In the chaos, the shot meant for Zay misses and hits Benny instead, kills him instantly. Benny's death isn't just personal tragedy, its effect on Zay is profound, immediate. His already erratic, violent nature becomes even more unhinged, more brutal, more unpredictable. Like the last bit of his humanity, his sanity maybe, just vanished with his only friend, his only check. It's the moment the favela loses its last fragile bit of balance.
You've nailed the gravity of Betty's death. It's the absolute linchpin that unravels everything. And what's truly harrowing is how this seemingly accidental, yet deeply personal event escalates into full-scale war, engulfing the whole community. With Benny gone as confidant, the only voice of reason, Zay's rage, is completely unchecked. In his raw grief and fury, he commits this unforgivable, truly heinous act. He rapes the girlfriend of a peaceful, well-respected local guy named Knockout Ned. This is the moment. This singular act of profound violation. It finally pushes Ned, who had managed to stay out of the gang violence until then, past his breaking point. It fundamentally changes him. This unspeakable act drives Ned to abandon his peaceful life and join forces with Zay's rivals, which basically kicks off the full-blown gang war that consumes the favela, plunging it even deeper into chaos. Ned's transformation is one of the most poignant, heartbreaking arcs in the film. He starts as a symbol of resistance, right? Driven by righteous vengeance against Zay's tyranny, a symbol of justice in a lawless place. But the film is unflinching. It shows he's inevitably corrupted by the very cycle of revenge he enters. He becomes just as violent, as ruthless, as morally compromised as the forces he was fighting. His journey just hammers home that central theme, the relentless cycle of violence. Each act of brutality creates another, trapping even those who start out seeking peace or justice. It shows how the environment can strip away even noble intentions, forcing people to become what they hate just to survive.
And with Ned's transformation, yeah, the favela literally becomes a war zone, a crucible of nonstop conflict. The 1980s arrive, and the conflict between Zay and Ned escalates into this all-out, brutal, terrifying gang war. It's not just skirmishes anymore, it's daily, deadly shootouts. Violence is rampant, pervasive. Fear just grips everyone in Ciudad de Deus. The community is reduced to a bloody battleground, streets soaked in blood. And through all this chaos, incredibly, almost impossibly, Rocket stays the observer. He's not fighting, he's watching, not fleeing, documenting. He keeps living there, moving through it, armed only with his camera. And during this brutal conflict, bullets flying, bodies falling, he manages to capture these incredibly powerful, raw images of Zeh, his rivals, the gangs. They aren't just snapshots, they're these unflinching portraits of power, despair, death. It's a profound irony, almost a commentary on visual storytelling itself. It really made me think, okay, how does his seemingly passive role as observer suddenly become his ultimate escape route?
It's a truly remarkable narrative turn, and it says so much about the themes the film is juggling. Rocket's photos aren't just art or even just documents. They literally become his currency for freedom, his lifeline out. The significance of his pictures getting published in a major newspaper is huge. It's not just validation of his talent. It gives him that crucial, legitimate break he needs to escape the slum, pursue his dream as a professional photographer outside the favela's grip. It's a powerful statement about media, right? His lens captures the truth so raw, it fundamentally changes his own agency. It proves that in a world drowning in violence, objective documentation can be a revolutionary act of survival, a path to self-determination. The film then builds to its devastating climax, the apparent end of Lil Zay's reign. Zay, the embodiment of that brutal power, seems almost invincible. Survives multiple shootouts throughout the war. Seems like a force that can't be stopped by rivals, Ned, or the police. But here's the ultimate chilling irony. One of the film's most potent messages. Zay isn't killed by a rival gangster, not by Ned, not by any established player he fought. He's ultimately killed by a group of even younger kids. The film calls them, hauntingly, the runts. These are children, barely kids, who grew up idolizing crime. For them, violence isn't just a means, it's just existence. They're the next, even more ruthless generation of dealers, and they immediately take over the drug trade. This raises that profoundly unsettling question. Is there any real escape from this cycle, or does it just regenerate? Becoming even more ruthless, more ingrained with every turn. Zay's end isn't a triumph of justice in any normal sense. It's a stark illustration of the cycle's insidious, self-perpetuating power. A reminder that the environment just keeps perpetuating itself, regardless of who falls.
And that unsettling feeling, that sense of an unbroken cycle, it's just hammered home with brutal clarity in the epilogue. We see Rocket, our guy, finally walking away from the city of God. He's got his camera, his new job at the newspaper. He survived. Crucially, he documented the horrors he saw, became the eyes and ears for outsiders. On the surface, yeah, it feels like a bittersweet win, a personal triumph against impossible odds. But the film, with its typical refusal of easy answers, immediately pivots to those final, chilling scenes. We see the runts, these new, even younger criminals, barely children, sitting together, casually listing names of people they plan to kill next. It's stark, brutal, deeply sobering. It signals that despite everything Rocket went through, despite Zez's fall, despite the war ending, nothing fundamental has changed in the underlying structure of the City of God itself. The power vacuum is filled instantly, effortlessly, and the cycle just continues, relentlessly, with an even younger, more merciless generation stepping right in. So what does this all really mean for the City of God itself? Has anything actually been resolved for the community?
Yeah, when you connect it all, the film leaves us with this stark, challenging truth about its big themes, powerfully reinforced by that ending. First, the cycle of violence. It's the most pervasive, inescapable theme. The film shows, with brutal honesty, how violence just breeds more violence. Each generation falls deeper into crime, starts younger, becomes more ruthless, shows more casual disregard for life than the last. There's no real resolution to the violence, just this perpetual regeneration of conflict, a self-sustaining ecosystem of brutality. Second, it's this profound, unspoken commentary on poverty and inequality. The story highlights, not through lectures, but through lived experience, how severely limited choices due to poverty, lack of opportunity, lack of outside support, push young boys into gangs almost from infancy. It becomes a desperate way to survive, a path to power, even a twisted form of belonging. It creates this self-perpetuating system where crime isn't just an option. It's often the main economic and social structure. It's a world where boys become men through violence, not education or jobs. Third, that fate versus choice theme is so beautifully, yet painfully, shown through Rocket. His escape is truly rare, a singular win against overwhelming odds. While most others, despite wanting something different like Benny, trying so hard to leave, remain tragically trapped by circumstance, their destinies seem sealed by where they were born, underscoring how incredibly hard, almost impossible it is to break free from those systemic chains. And finally, media in truth comes through so powerfully with Rocket's photography. His lens becomes the ultimate tool to expose the harsh, unvarnished reality, showing the power of storytelling, of journalism, not just to document suffering, but maybe to inspire change or at least deeper understanding from outsiders. The film's overall impact is just visceral, heartbreaking, undeniably powerful. rightly praised for its innovative direction, that rapid editing mirroring the chaos, and the raw authenticity from its non-professional cast. It's a masterpiece that ends on that deeply bittersweet note. Rocket gets out, but the city of God continues its relentless cycle unbroken. It leaves us with that stark truth. Individuals might escape, but the systemic issues, the conditions breeding the violence, they remain deeply entrenched. A testament to the power of environment over individual will.
Yeah, as we wrap up this really impactful deep dive, it's just abundantly clear that City of God is so much more than crime drama. It's profound social commentary, a raw, unflinching look at a society seemingly trapped in this brutal, self-replicating loop. We've traced that journey from the almost naive tender trio in the 60s, through Lil Zez's terrifying reign in the 70s, and then to the chilling rise of the Runts, who, with disturbing casualness, just pick up the mantle of violence, signaling the cycle is, for the community, truly unbroken. Rocket's escape offers that sliver of hope, right? A testament to individual will, the power of art. But that hope is always shadowed by the despair of a community seemingly fated to repeat its darkest patterns. It's a film that leaves this indelible mark, urges you to think about the huge forces shaping lives and just how incredibly hard it is for anyone to really break free.
And that exactly is where its enduring, unsettling power lies. It forces us to look beyond Rio, to consider parallel cycles of violence, systemic disadvantage, inescapable patterns elsewhere. Could be personal struggles, could be broader societal issues that seem intractable from the outside. How do we as individuals, as a society, even begin to truly understand, let alone break, these seemingly endless cycles? Cycles that aren't obvious to us maybe, but are devastating for those inside. It also really encourages reflection on the vital role of art and documentation, like Rocket's photography, in confronting uncomfortable truths, making the unseen visible. So it begs that crucial question. If just documenting the cycle doesn't break it, if just witnessing the truth isn't enough, what is the next step? For us as informed individuals, how do we translate powerful stories like City of God into real understanding, or maybe broader societal change? It's a challenge the film just leaves hanging there, a call for deeper thought and perhaps, meaningful engagement that goes beyond just watching.